and I'm a sucker for lists. Complex Media put together a ranking of the top 10 most influential players in NBA history. The featured image includes Magic, Steph, Jordan, Wilt, and LeBron. And I saw this, and I'm like, oh, this is content. This is definitely content. Coming up with our best NBA players of all time list was way easier than this. Because it's a piece of cake showing love or completely shading the game's best players based on metrics and ordering them in some sort of coherent, authoritative fashion the way we did when we dropped the 30 greatest NBA players in history, a list that I'm not going to go into because I don't have the mental facilities for that. Anyway, it goes on and they get into measuring influence, right? Debating who deserves GOAT status between Jordan or LeBron, for instance, was light work and way less messy than trying to figure out something so subjective, in the sense of declaring LeBron James a more influential player than Steph Curry, which I think is a very interesting debate, and I'm sure I'll get into it when we break down this list. But have you ever thought about how to measure their influence? Definitively weighing how impactful their career was while taking into account their brilliance on the court, coupled with their uniqueness off it that's captivated audiences, captured imaginations, and fused pop and basketball culture, or how they changed the game's trajectory. It's way harder than we bargained for. They came up with this, it says, first, we came up with a list of roughly 20 guys, then whittled it down to 10 we felt were truly the most influential. Legends like Dirk, Dr. J, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Bill Russell missed the final cut. Then our voting panel was asked to order the players 1 through 10 in terms of their influence in 4 categories. I don't know what this list looks like. I didn't look at it. But there better be some really, really airtight cases here, because to not include Dr. J on a list of the most influential players, I think should land you in federal prison, because we do not have above the rim style basketball without him. Even excluding Dirk Nowitzki as well. Not just when you take into account what he's done on the court, but what he did for European basketball. How he showed that players from Europe aren't soft. How they can come over to America and dominate. And how he is the reason why we have people like Giannis, like Luka, like I was going to say Kristaps Porzingis, but you know what I mean. I would argue that Dirk's influence on basketball goes beyond Europe. He's showing that foreign players in general can compete. And with guys like Yao Ming, guys with Hakeem Olajuwon, who of course influenced basketball in their respective nations, that is something that I think I can already get a sense that this might be getting overlooked. It's just that the global impact of some of these guys. But anyway, then our voting panel was asked to order the players 1 through 10 in terms of their influence in 4 categories: transcendence, innovation, impact on culture, and legacy. After tallying up the results here, we got the list of the top 10 most influential players in NBA history. And at number 10, Kevin Garnett, who ranked 10th in transcendence, cultural impact, and legacy, and was 4th in innovation. I'm not here to dismiss Kevin Garnett. Kevin Garnett, absolutely incredible. During his peak in Minnesota, was one of the most versatile forwards on both ends of the floor that the NBA has ever seen. Went on to win a title with the Boston Celtics, a member of the NBA's all-time 75 team. But right away, am I including him on this list over Julius Erving? No, I'm not. I'm putting Dr. J in over Kevin Garnett 100 times out of 10. Yes, I said that intentionally. 100 times out of 10. Because, as I already mentioned, Julius Erving laid the groundwork for guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James. If Julius Erving never picks up basketball, I don't know what it looks like. I do not know what the landscape of the NBA looks like. And then just so many iconic moments that Julius Erving has. His cradle underneath the backboard. Back in I forget what year it was, but the whole image of Dr. J, especially when he played in the NBA with the red, white, and blue Nets jersey, with the afro, flying through the air like some sort of angel. And on top of that, statistically, is still comparable to all of the all-time greats that came after him. I think that he's more deserving to be on this list than Kevin Garnett, at least at this rate. For starters, KG deserves all the credit in the world for being a trailblazer who reopened the high school to NBA pipeline. Okay, I understand that. I get it. But I can't argue that point. I'm not going to try to argue that point. The second reason Garnett deserves to be on this list is his record-breaking $126 million deal signed in 1997, which set a bomb off in NBA circles. See, I don't know if I fuck with this, if I fuck with those reasonings. Well, I mean, I do fuck with those reasonings. The prep to pro thing definitely is something you have to consider. I didn't even consider that when I was thinking about Kevin Garnett. So obviously that evaded me. Guys like Kobe, guys like LeBron, the legendary Brandon Jennings going that route as well. I don't know if it compares to what Julius Erving did, to how he impacted like the game of basketball and how the game of basketball is played. I think that maybe that might be a fundamental difference in how I'm analyzing this topic. The next is Wilt. I think that Wilt does deserve to be on this list for pretty much the reason being that he is the most dominant player ever. Everyone knows Wilt Chamberlain. Everyone's heard the name. He was so dominant that it seems as if he never actually existed and that his records were all just penciled in by people working in the early days of the NBA. But no, he was very real, very dominant. Maybe not a pop culture icon, but again, definitely someone who showed the potential of what basketball players could be during a time when the league was still young and they didn't have anybody like him. They didn't have a super duper star. They didn't have many guys who you can look back on and say that they would dominate in any era. And Wilt Chamberlain is that guy. I'm not going to read any of the soliloquy because I agree with his placement on this list. At 9, I don't know if these numbers are even really reflective because to me there's really only one guy who sits, or there were really only a couple of guys who can arguably sit at the top of this list, and anything else is really just, they're on a different tier. The next, Shaquille O'Neal. He deserves to be on this list from a domination standpoint, but I also feel that Shaq was one of the first people to show that athletes could be celebrities too. I know Michael Jordan existed and really changed culture in that regard, but Shaq was and still is in so many different things. He's still so prominent. He's still probably one of the most recognizable NBA players of all time. And you couple that with him also being a part of arguably the greatest dynasty of all time, the early 2000s Lakers, playing so well alongside Kobe Bryant. I'm not going to argue Shaq's placement on this list. I think he 100% deserves to be on here. Kareem, anytime that you have the league changing the rules, you're on any top influence list. And Kareem did that. 6-time champion, multiple time MVP, has a legitimate greatest of all time case that no one seems to recognize. I shouldn't even have to elaborate on this. Yes, one of the most influential NBA players of all time, undeniably. Allen Iverson at 6. Although AI may not have impacted the game of basketball, like the actual game of basketball, as sizably as some of his contemporaries, this dude is a cultural icon, proved that it didn't matter what you looked like, where you came from, how your perception or how people might negatively perceive you from being yourself, that's okay. And that you can still be a bad motherfucker on the court regardless of all that. Allen Iverson, of course, deserves to be on this list. I really don't think I have to argue this. I mean, he's ranked second in cultural impact. I mean, obviously, like, really the basketball portion of Allen Iverson is hampered by the fact that he never won a championship or anything like that, but context is important here as my voice is starting to go. But again, context is important here. The 76ers team that he dragged to the finals in 2000, 2001 never should have gotten there, but they were there. So yes, Allen Iverson on this list. Kobe Bryant, obviously. I mean, we say Kobe every time we throw garbage into a trash can. I don't have to argue this. Steph Curry is 4th on this list, and I think that he should be number 1. I think that in terms of how he changed basketball, how he revolutionized basketball, in 10, 20 years, we're going to look back and say that Steph Curry was the most revolutionary player who ever picked up a basketball. It is preposterous how one guy changed basketball so much, how one guy forced the entire league to alter their game plans, how one guy made the three-point shot so viable, and by proxy paved the way for so many young basketball players who weren't the biggest, who weren't the strongest. LeBron never changed how basketball was played. Jordan never changed how basketball was played. Part of it was because these guys were so physically gifted that you knew you were not going to be able to be LeBron, that you were not going to be able to be Jordan. I mean, the only other guy on this list who really had that kind of an impact was Kareem. Like Kareem was so dominant that the powers that be outlawed dunking, a fundamental part of the sport, only so Kareem wouldn't pretty much average 70 points. So obviously Steph is on this list. I'm putting him at number 1. Cultural icon, was the most popular player in the NBA for a couple years in a row, ahead of LeBron, is still one of the most popular players in the NBA. Global influence, changed the game, has the accolades, has the numbers. He should be number 1 on this list. I'm sorry to Jordan. I'm sorry to LeBron. I'm sorry to whoever the other person might be on this list. I'm not too sure. Magic Johnson. Okay. Magic Johnson deserves to be on this list. Magic defined Showtime. He defined flashy basketball. He also saved the league, okay? We have to remember this. Magic Johnson came into the NBA at a time when the players were seen as thugs, where there were rampant drug problems plaguing the league, where the fate of the NBA was in serious jeopardy. And here comes Magic Johnson, this tall, skinny guy from Michigan, radiant smile, bubbly personality, super charismatic, also exceptionally talented, went head-to-head against Larry Bird in the NCAA finals. He comes into the league and the perception changes. It's instantly different. The Lakers are fun to watch because you have this 6'8" point guard who really shouldn't be playing point guard. And not only that, is playing point guard better than everybody else, is just so, it's just, you can't look away. Again, his dynasty earned a nickname, the Showtime Lakers, and he won 5 championships. And then, of course, we have LeBron. Not much I can say about that. And then Michael Jordan. Now, the one thing, I'm not surprised Jordan is on this list. Obviously, you have to respect his resume. I'm not a Jordan hater. I just think that the greatest of all time argument is a lot closer than a lot of people think. However, Jordan's impact on culture, on everything we know, is unrivaled. Sneakers, clothes, just basketball becoming like cool, I guess. Building on what Magic had done before him. And then also LeBron building on what Jordan had done before him. Like it's all intertwined. And of course, what he did on the basketball court is unrivaled. Same thing with LeBron. These guys are, really it's them and Kareem in the GOAT debate, and that's it, at least as of now. I'm sure Steph will be there at some point. I'm already preparing myself to have Giannis in that conversation. That's the difference between me and all the old heads, is that the old heads will go to the grave thinking that Jordan is the GOAT or arguing that Jordan is the GOAT. I'm 25 and I'm already open to the idea that LeBron, my GOAT, will be surpassed by Giannis. That just goes to show that I am just simply on a different level. I am undefeatable in the marketplace of ideas. I am a Dark Souls boss when it comes to hyper intellectualism. This, of course, is all a joke. I'm kidding. I'm dumb as fuck. But I think that this list is fine. I've definitely seen worst lists. This commenter says KG, come on, completely missed the boat on Dr. J. There is no Magic Jordan AI without Dr. J. This is actually facts. This dude is, I don't even know how to say his name, but he's 100% speaking facts. I still think Steph is, again, the most influential player the NBA has ever seen. But I think I've made my case in that regard.